व्हाट्सएप पे
ये थोड़ा
आ जाएगा, एक आध मिनट में रिफ्रेश कर। फोटोग्राफर ही बोला सब कैमरा में जितने बैठे बोला
speaking on the main topic itself. जी
Dr. Shashi Balaji and Dr. Manoj Shinde. In fact, I joined Sangha and Dr. Manoj Shinde was the Managar Pracharak in Chennai. And Ravi Kumar ji, who would have delivered a much better speech than I can, because he has experienced the civilizational diversity of the world. From the Indian perspective, he has lived there. I have studied, I have observed, but he has lived and seen the diversities of the world and how India can, Bharat can harmonize these diversities. The greatest gift that is given to the Indian civilization, it can harmonize. And he has vast experience. He would have been a much better speaker than me on this subject. It requires not a focused perspective, it requires a broad, what I would always call a helicopter perspective, to understand how the civilizational consciousness of the world was suppressed in the post-World War II period. And more actively after the post-Cold War period. And how there is an explosion of civilizational consciousness in the world. Unless we see the rise of civilizational consciousness in the world and the parallel development that has been going on in this country, we will not be able to connect the two. So, my effort would be where from the world started after the post-World War II. And why we are talking about it today. Anything that you talk without relevance to the present context will be theory. Everything has to be judged in the context of what is happening today and to be related. What is happening in the world today? After the pandemic, COVID pandemic struck, Dr. Henry Kissinger wrote a 600-word article, in which the only meaningful sentence we could find was that the world order has changed forever. Why that one sentence is important was that he was the man who formulated the world order in the post-World War period particularly. And he was the man who was supposed to have brought to end the Cold War and virtually destroyed the Soviet Union. And he is an icon. He was acclaimed as one of the greatest minds which shaped the Western civilization into the lead position. And so this is very important. That he said after the pandemic struck, all the assumptions on the basis of which the world order was structured has become questionable. And so the world order will change forever. In fact, many people began talking about it, and a series of articles, researches and studies appeared. But the fact is that the world order, which was instituted post-World War II, had become collapsible. And now after the Ukraine war, again Kissinger spoke in the Davos conference, World Economic Conference, that we must put an end to this war immediately. Unless we do that, the world order will get permanently restructured. There are two different meanings of that. One, the world order will change forever, means that will change on its own. Now he uses the word, it will get permanently restructured. That means it's not going to happen by our effort or on its own, it will get restructured by a course of very huge struggle, war, difficulties. And George Soros, who had sworn to establish the supremacy of the Western civilization in all fields, including politics, finance, market, trade, he said that if the world order changes, the Western civilization will collapse forever. So there is a link between the Western civilization and the world order. So it is in this situation we are situated today. And we are not one of the pushovers. When the world order was formed, Bharat never mattered. Nobody even looked at us. But when the world order is shaking and something new is emerging, now Bharat is something which the world cannot ignore. So in this perspective, we have to see what changes are taking place in the world. There are 5 propositions which emerges in this. One is, when the world order changes, there doesn't seem to be an alternative in sight. For example, there is government today. The government is not there, what will happen? So this change is taking place without an alternative in place. So you can understand the confusion and the uncharted territory into which the world is entering. All of us are entering, including us. The European Union Farsight Institute, it's one of the important think tanks of the European Union government. It has said 2 things. One, that there will be no hegemonic power in the world by 2030. 2030 is not far away, just 6 years. In 6 years, there is not going to be any hegemonic power. And middle powers will rise in this period. They are given variety of calculations for that. How shift is taking place in terms of military, shift is taking place in terms of GDP, in terms of trade, in terms of population. In all this, there is a huge shift taking place, eroding the power of the West. So, it's a middle powers will rise. 3rd thing, 4th thing. In this, India has emerged as a strategic power, and it is one of the prime influencers of the world today. And it is not that these positions anybody appoints you as such. You emerge. You emerge on your merit. You emerge because of your position. You emerged because of the promise you hold for the world. Many people do not even know why the world sees India as emerging. In fact, when I was talking to the Vivekananda International Foundation this morning to a group of Global South strategic thinkers, I told them it is unfortunate that many Indians do not know about India. And if Indians do not know about India, they will not be able to tell the world about India. I gave them a few facts which I would like to present before you also, before I go into the subject. We know we have 2.4% of the global land area. And we have 18% of human population. And we have 30% of bovine population. We have 40% of cattle population. We have 8% of birds and mammals. And we have 21% forest coverage. This is an ecological, environmental, human wonder. America has 3.5 times the size of India. It's 1/4 of India's population. And 1/6 of India's cattle population. China is 3.5 times the size of India, with a little over Indian population, with 1/6 of bovine population. With a small piece of land. We are supporting not just human beings. We are supporting the entire creation. This is a living model. When I mentioned all this, almost 40 delegates had come from different parts of the world. They were all shocked. These are simple facts, which I call them as Newtonian falling apple facts. Apple falls, you recognize apple will always fall. But we don't connect why it falls. If all these people could coexist, it cannot be by accident. There has to be a philosophy, there has to be an understanding, in the sense that in 1960s and 70s, we did not have food to eat. But at that time also the cattle population kept rising. We didn't eat them. This is what we call as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I told you. This Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is not something 5,000 years back somebody wrote a verse and we keep repeating it. It's a model lived. Lived in spite of invasions, in spite of devastations, mass killings, destruction of our culture, value systems, families torn apart, societies destroyed. But still, this continues. And this continues in such a manner that recently the Encyclopedia Britannica of all mentioned how the Indus Valley civilization, they linked it to the Indus Valley civilization to say how there is going to continue. This is very important because civilization has two aspects. One is the structural aspect, the architecture, the building, the way physically we live. The other thing is the philosophical living. So Indus Valley is the physical presentation of India's continuity. Many people say that it is a different India, it's a modern India, it's a new India, it was born day before yesterday. Gordon Child, B. Gordon Child is a historian, is an Australian, and he's a left historian, because our left historians do not know that other left historians can tell the truth. India confronts Egypt and Babylonia by the 3rd millennium with a thoroughly individual and independent civilization of our own. Technically the peer of the rest, and plainly it is deeply rooted in the Indian soil. Everybody was trying to say it is some kind of a borrowed or a mirror mechanism of the Babylonian and Egyptian civilization. He says no. Indian civilization represents a very perfect adjustment of human life to a specific environment. And it has endured. It is already specifically Indian, and forms the basis of the modern Indian culture. When Swami Vivekananda said that if you want to know the ancient past of any other civilization or nation, you have to look at the broken monuments. But in India, you can see the continuity. 5,000 years back, the way our people lived, large part of the Indian population lives the same life even today. 5,000 years, the phonetic sound of Vedas has not changed. The same phonetic sound you can hear in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, in Andhra today. Word of mouth, same. The meter, it hasn't changed. This kind of continuity is denied to every other civilization in the world. All other civilizations past is a mystery. Here you can see that this is a continuity and a living continuity. And this is what Gordon Childe says, and I will quote to you what Encyclopedia Britannica says. He is not one of the great admirers of India. The force of Childe's words can be appreciated even without an examination of the Indus Valley script found on the seals. See, Indus Valley seals are undecipherable. It is a mystery even today. All attempts to read the Indus Valley seals have been a failure so far. Everybody has got some theory and nothing more. The attention paid to domestic bathroom, the drains, the great bath at Mohenjo-daro. Many people do not know the great bath at Mohenjo-daro is what is our Kumbh Mela. Are all compared to the elements in the later Indian civilization. The bullock carts with fabric canopy called the cars, and the boats are a little changed to this day. The absence of pins and the love of bangles and elaborate nose ornaments are peculiarly South Indian. From that day to till today, the nose rings of women have not changed. The religion of the Indus is also replete with suggestions of traits known from later India. The significance of the bull, the tiger, the elephant, the composite animals, the seated yogi of the seals, the tree spirits and the objects resembling Shiva, the linga of later times, are all suggestive of the enduring forms of the Indian civilization. From that time till today, it's the same. When I mentioned all this, of course, I know to the audience this morning, and I said that none of the English educated people of India ever got familiar with what I am telling for themselves, for them to tell you to understand India. So we are an ignorant people, kept ignorant and illiterate by a massive programming. And unless we get out of that programmed mind, we cannot understand world civilizations and what is meant to be civilization in the world. The word civilization in the world is merely physical structures, nothing more. There is nothing called continuity of a philosophy or lifestyle, habits, faith of the people. So, unless we understand how the world views civilization, China views civilization for instance, I will come to later. Our understanding of the civilization is the recall of the past, the rishis, the forefathers, the Saraswati, the Ganga. I mean, it has a very different significance. So, with this background, we have to understand that this collapse or the near collapse or the threatened collapse of the world order is not an overnight development. This development was seeded in the year 1951. The West, which means America, when it took charge of the world, the entire world had been, Europe had been shattered. Asia had been colonized, Japan defeated. The entire world was in ruins. Only one country escaped all this. And it is said that during the World War, America exchanged dollars for gold. Its gold reserves went up from 8,000 metric tons to 26,000 metric tons during the war. The entire world gold got into the hands of America, through which America established the World Bank and IMF, and related the value of the dollar to gold, and related all currencies to the value of the dollar, made dollar and gold equal, and all other currencies dependent on the dollar, and that is how the world economic order was completely taken over by America. So what they said became the law. And in 1951, they came out, that is the United Nations, dominated by America, came out with measures for the development of underdeveloped nations. Unless we understand this, we cannot understand what was the plan and how that plan failed, and how the failure of the plan gives the rest of the nations an opportunity to feel themselves to be what they are. Measures for the development of underdeveloped nations, 1951. There is a sense in which rapid economic progress is impossible without painful adjustments. Ancient philosophies have to be scrapped. Old social institutions have to disintegrate, including families, you must understand that. Bonds of caste, creed and race have to burst. And large numbers of persons who cannot keep up with progress have to have their expectations of comfortable life frustrated. Very few communities are willing to pay the full price for rapid economic progress. This is called Western anthropological modernity. That every society has to be contracted out of its traditions to be transformed into a collection of individuals. This is individualism, which is now leading to wokeism. This was seeded. Yes, that has been your experience. You may have succeeded because you wiped out all the communities which existed in America and took over such a large tract of land with very little population. You had a clean slate. And you could write whatever you wanted on that. In the years 1800, America had 97% white population. In 1960, they had 87% white population. Today, their white population is threatening to come below 50%. That is the problem. So they dominated and they wrote the rules for the world. And every country looked at America that if we have to develop, we have to become like them. That is how this was written. And this was agreeable to both communists and capitalists because there is no difference between communism and capitalism. We all think it is a philosophical difference. It's a difference in the ownership. It's a ownership battle. Whether property should be in the hands of the state or in the hands of the individuals is the only difference of opinion between the two. The purpose for which the property is to be put to use is the same. It is for exploiting, enjoying life. That everybody should enjoy equally is the communist proposition. Everybody can enjoy according to their capacity is the capitalist proposition. Otherwise, there is no difference. Philosophically, there is no difference between the two. And Russia also was party to this measures for the development of underdeveloped nations. And all our IAS officers, IFS officers, our Sociological Studies Institute, our Economic Studies Institute, our colleges and universities were flooded with these thoughts that unless you cease to be who you are, unless Indians cease to be Indians, they cannot develop. This is what was taught to us. This was the media discourse. This was the public discourse.